It's late. The house has gone quiet in that particular way. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses against the walls, that settles into the space between your ribs. Maybe a friendship has slowly, quietly drifted. Maybe a conversation left something unresolved, something you're still turning over in the back of your mind hours later. Or maybe it's nothing you could point to, just a weight that's been sitting with you, unnamed, unexplained, the kind you couldn't hand to someone else even if you tried. You haven't cried. You haven't said a word out loud. You've barely moved, and then without a sound, your dog is there. Not bounding in with energy, not nudging you for attention. Just there, pressed against your side, warm and still, as if they had quietly decided that this was exactly where they needed to be. You didn't call them. You didn't show them anything. And yet somehow they knew. How did they know? Most people, when they sit with that question, arrive at the same comfortable answer. Dogs stay close when we're sad because they want something. Warmth, the security of proximity, a stillness that reads like an invitation to settle. The assumption underneath is gentle but clear. The behavior is self-serving, or at the very least coincidental. You stopped moving, so they moved to you. You went quiet, so they found a convenient place to rest. It's an affectionate interpretation, even a humble one. It doesn't ask too much of the moment, doesn't make claims the science couldn't support. And it's probably an explanation you've offered yourself at least once, because it feels unsentimental and honest. The only problem is that it is almost entirely wrong. Because here's what the research actually found. Studies observing dog behavior in response to human emotional states, not displayed emotion, not theatrical distress, but the quiet, interior kind, discovered something that changes the picture entirely. Dogs don't simply move toward owners who are still or settled. They specifically move toward owners who are experiencing negative emotional states, and when they do, the behavior is measurably different. The body language shifts. The contact becomes more sustained. The dog's own physiological markers change. This isn't a dog finding a warm place to lie down. Something in them has registered something specific happening inside you, and they have closed the distance with a kind of deliberateness that habit alone cannot account for. Researchers studying canine cognition, including a landmark series of behavioral studies out of the University of London, have documented what they now describe as functional empathic accuracy in dogs, the ability not just to sense that something is wrong, but to identify and respond to it appropriately. In controlled observations, dogs consistently oriented toward and approached humans in emotional distress more reliably than they approached humans in neutral or positive states, and they did so even when the distress was subtle. No visible crying, no dramatic display, no behavioral cue that a casual observer would catch. Psychologists studying the human-dog bond have classified this response pattern as one of the clearest examples of cross-species empathic behavior in the animal kingdom, placing dogs among a very small group of species that respond to another species' emotional pain with deliberate, targeted comfort-seeking. Your dog isn't guessing. They are reading something real and responding to it with something that, by every functional definition, looks like care. And what that means, when you let yourself sit with it, is that your dog's closeness in your quietest, loneliest moments is not need, and it is not performance. It is something closer to witnessed presence, the purest, most uncomplicated kind. When you are in pain, most human connection, however loving, carries weight. The need to explain yourself, to make the feeling legible, to perform a version of your sadness that others can hold. Your dog asks none of that. They arrive without an agenda. They don't need you to name the thing or make sense of it or resolve it. Research consistently shows that the presence of a dog during emotional distress reduces the felt intensity of loneliness in ways that human presence sometimes cannot, precisely because it requires nothing from you in return. They simply arrive and stay, and that is the entire offering. What makes this even more striking is what's happening in both bodies during those moments of quiet contact. Studies measuring oxytocin, the neurochemical associated with bonding, safety, and social connection, have found that sustained physical proximity between a dog and a distressed owner produces mutual elevation of that neurochemical in both species simultaneously. Researchers at Azabu University documented this bidirectional effect, finding that the bond being reinforced in those moments isn't one-directional. Your dog isn't simply administering comfort while remaining unaffected. Their own neurochemistry is responding to yours. And cortisol, the stress hormone elevated by loneliness in humans and by emotional contagion in dogs, begins to regulate downward in both of you with sustained contact. The warmth of your dog pressed against you in the dark is not a symbol. It is a measurable biological event. Two nervous systems quietly recalibrating each other. This behavior didn't emerge by accident. For somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years, depending on which archaeological evidence you follow, dogs and humans have survived together by developing an extraordinarily deep social attunement. A human who was emotionally withdrawn, distressed, or isolated was a signal in the ancient social structure. Someone whose behavior might become unpredictable, or someone who needed to be kept close for the stability of the group. Dogs who moved toward that distress rather than away from it reinforced the bond. They secured their place. What feels like comfort on a quiet Tuesday night in your living room is at its root an ancient relational reflex. Still running, still precise, exactly as it was shaped to be. And it goes deeper than individual moments. Dogs live with owners who experience chronic or frequent loneliness, develop what behavioral researchers have called heightened emotional vigilance, a persistent, low-level attunement to their owner's internal state that reshapes the dog's entire behavioral baseline over time. These dogs don't only respond to acute moments of distress. They begin to anticipate them, adjusting their proximity patterns throughout the day in ways that mirror the owner's emotional rhythms like a second shadow. Your dog isn't just responding to tonight's loneliness. They have been quietly mapping the emotional landscape of your life for as long as they have lived inside it. Here is where the picture shifts in a way that cuts quietly. Research has found that dogs respond more intensely to genuine, unperformed emotional states than to socially managed ones. When you are lonely but presenting as fine scrolling, going through motions, holding the surface steady, your dog's response is often stronger than it is when your distress is openly visible. They're not reading your face. They're not responding to behavioral cues. They're reading something beneath the surface, something you haven't shown anyone, something you may not have fully admitted to yourself. The twist is this: your dog may understand your loneliness more accurately than you allow yourself to, and they are responding to the version of you that you have never shown to another living soul. Which means that when your dog presses against you in those moments, allowing that contact, actually feeling it rather than half registering it while your mind is elsewhere, matters more than you might think. Studies on human-animal contact during emotional distress found that the benefits are dose-dependent. Passive proximity helps, but engaged contact, returning the touch, letting yourself actually receive the closeness, produces significantly stronger neurochemical and emotional regulation effects in both of you. This reframes what feels like being comforted in something more mutual, more reciprocal. When you let your dog stay close and actually feel it, both of you are being restored by the same quiet moment. So when you think back to that night, the late hour, the stillness, the weight you were carrying that you hadn't named, and your dog appeared and simply stayed, it wasn't coincidence. It wasn't habit. It wasn't a creature looking for warmth or convenience. It was something old, something biological, something honed across thousands of years of living alongside human beings, moving through the dark toward you. They felt the specific shape of your loneliness in a way that no words could have communicated, and they made a choice, in whatever wordless, instinct-deep way dogs make choices, to close the distance. They pressed against you and stayed. No explanation required. No version of yourself demanded that you didn't already are. In your dog, without ever asking for it, you have always had a witness, one who has never once looked away. If there was a moment your dog found you before you'd shown it, before you'd named it, drop it in the comments. And if you want to go deeper, your dog understands your loneliness. But what do they understand about your fear? And do they feel it in their own body when you do? That's next.